So I recently was reading that Alec Baldwin wasn't going to be charged, and that was the thought process this entire time. And I'm happy to report that, according to the Post Millennial, they're reporting that Alec Baldwin will soon face charges. It's been about a year. Let's read a little bit. Alex Baldwin likely to face charges in shooting death of cinematographer 𝓟𝓛𝓔 𝓄𝓛𝓔. Santa Fe District Attorney Mary Cormac 𝓟𝓚𝓔 asked for funding to indict 4 defendants, saying one of the possible defendants is well-known movie actor Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin is likely to be charged for shooting and killing cinematographer 𝓟𝓚 𝓟𝓛𝓔 on the set of his low-budget movie Rust in Bonanza City, New Mexico on October 21, 2021. The Daily Mail reports that Santa Fe District Attorney Mary Cormac 𝓟𝓚𝓚 submitted a letter on August 30th to the New Mexico Financial Board asking for funding to indict 4 defendants, and then it was recently approved. In the letter, Cormac 𝓟𝓚 wrote, one of the possible defendants is well-known movie actor Alec Baldwin. Cormac 𝓟𝓚 asked for $635,000 to prosecute and said that murder charges were on the table along with other weapons-related offenses. She said that a final piece of evidence was Baldwin's phone, as authorities were waiting results from its analysis. After the shooting, Baldwin had issued a statement. There are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding the tragic accident that took the life of 𝓟𝓚 𝓟𝓛𝓔, a wife, a mother, and deeply admired colleague of ours. The movie was filming at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, a popular production location south of Santa Fe. Baldwin was also a producer on the film and previously said he doesn't blame himself for the accident. I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me, Baldwin previously stated. He said the 24-year-old armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed handed him the gun, and he thought it was prepared properly. Gutierrez Reed has denied she did anything wrong, but she was named by 𝓟𝓛𝓔's family in a wrongful death lawsuit as being responsible for the tragedy. In a December 2021 interview with George Stephanopoulos, Alec Baldwin said he didn't pull the trigger. Well, the trigger wasn't pulled, Baldwin said. I didn't pull the trigger. So you never pulled the trigger? No. I would never point a gun and pull that trigger at them, never. In August, an FBI analysis concluded that Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger of the gun that killed cinematographer 𝓟𝓛𝓔 and wounded director Joel Souza. Baldwin said he thought the weapon was a cold gun, a .45 Colt, and it's a long Colt, and it's a single-action revolver, and no matter what he says, this type of gun requires that you pull the trigger, requires that you pull the hammer back. It has different locking positions. First, it locks back a quarter cock, which is at about 1/8 of an inch of movement. Then it has another lock where it's half cocked, where the hammer is halfway back, and that is a loading position. There is no place in the movement of the gun or any of the locking positions where you can pull the hammer back and let it go and the gun will go off. It's an impossibility. The gun would have to be severely damaged and it would be inoperable. You can release the hammer all you want. The trigger has to be pulled. So him saying that he didn't pull the trigger, he's lying. The gun is not damaged in any way. It's been tested. The notch under the hammer is huge. That catches it in all the cocking positions. And whether it's a quarter cocked, half cocked, or fully cocked, you cannot let the hammer down, let go of it, slam it forward, anything to cause the gun to go off. If that notch under the hammer is damaged that severely, which is near impossible, the damage would be enough that the gun would be destroyed and not be usable. And the next thing to talk about with all of this is legally, there's what's known as culpable mental states. Think of them as what the person would be thinking related to, or should have been thinking, as relates to that actual crime. Some of those culpable mental states include purposefully, which is basically you're acting with intent, knowingly, which is knowing of the consequences, recklessly, which is like you're screwing around, like say you're shooting a gun up in the air, and negligence, which is you should have known. It's that you had a reasonable standard of care that you were supposed to take in those circumstances. In this case, it's a firearm. He had a reasonable standard that he was held to under the law, including the fact that he was a producer on the film, which means he is responsible for being one of the people that checks the gun that he would hold in his hand, checking it to see if it is loaded, if it's loaded with ammunition, if it's loaded with dummy rounds, whatever the case may be. And this use of the term prop gun, I got to go back to that, is absolutely stupid. It has nothing to do with being a prop for a movie. A prop gun, in this case, it's a real gun, and the word prop is just misleading. So if you're one of the people that knows you're responsible for checking a gun, never pointing it at a person, he had no reason to point it at her, you're not in a situation requiring you to pull the trigger, then yes, if you injure or kill someone, you are to blame. And that's homicide. And it might be negligent homicide. It depends on the laws in New Mexico or, wherever this, Santa Fe, wherever this happened. But certainly, Alec Baldwin is guilty of a crime. Anyone in similar circumstances would be charged with a crime. And what we're talking about here is it only works if you pull the trigger. As a producer, he is responsible. He pointed it at someone. He pulled the trigger. Whether he pulled the hammer back and pulled the trigger is of no consequence. He pulled the trigger. He caused the gun to go off. Someone was injured and someone was killed. And the person responsible for that, at least one of the people responsible for that, is Baldwin. Now, that's not to say other people aren't also responsible, and other people could also be charged, because that is certainly the case. They have these rules in place because different people that handle the firearm are supposed to go through additional checks. Not just one person checking and saying, here you go. Each person along the chain of custody of that is supposed to make sure that it is safe. And then Baldwin is supposed to follow the rules and making sure he doesn't point it at something. You got to know your rules about gun handling. And that's some of the things that he would have definitely been taught. Not pointing it at something you're not willing to destroy. Not putting your finger on the trigger until you're shooting it. And doing something for the camera and having to point it at a person, that should be off limits in every case. It shouldn't be something anyone should ever do. The gun not being checked by him specifically, something that should never pass. He is responsible. He is negligent homicide at the very least. I hope to see that justice is done in this case. Someone died, and someone has to answer for it. Whether he'll get any serious time or penalties or anything like that also remains to be seen. I doubt it. So even if this does come to criminal charges, it's Alec Baldwin, big Hollywood star, probably skate on a lot of this stuff. He can certainly afford millions of dollars in lawsuits and everything else that'll happen with this. And it's surprising to hear that the prosecutor's asking for money. It's probably because they know they have a lot to wade through with attorneys and everything in court case. They'll need extra money to even prosecute this. That's the way the legal system seems to work, unfortunately. But be interesting to see what's going to come of this. I'm glad to see that, and hopefully it's true that Alec Baldwin will pay the price for what he's done.